Welcome back, educator. This is Vicki Davis with Cool Cat Teacher Talk, where we talk about what matters in the classroom.
Ever wondered how remarkable teaching happens? Find out right now at Cool Cat Teacher Talk with award-winning teacher Vicki Davis. Get insights from top educators, tech tips, and inspiration to elevate your teaching.
Today's episode is aptly titled, Let Them Eat Cake. And before you think I'm channeling Marie Antoinette, let me spell that for you. C-A-I-K. You'll see why when we have a roaring conversation about everything AI and Edtech with my friends Gabriel Carrillo from Edtech Bites and Eric Curts from Controlled Alt Achieve. Then I'll share 10 tips for schools right now based on the current big announcements from Google and Microsoft. Then we'll dive into 11 book recommendations I have for you this summer at the end of the show. Let's start with our interview.
Out right now at Cool Cat Teacher Talk with award-winning teacher Vicki Davis.
This is our second week of Edtech and AI, our second of two ISD/ASCD episodes. Now, for those of you listening who don't know what ISD or ASCD is the International Society for Technology Educators, which recently merged with the Association of School Curriculum Directors. So these guys are having an AI and Ed Tech Power Hour where we will super share all sorts of things at that conference. We have Eric Curts in Ohio. He runs the website Control Alt Achieve. Nicest guy ever. Fosters kitty cats. And of course, I'm the Cool Cat Teacher. I love that. Eric, you have recently been here in Georgia. Where all have you gone in Georgia recently?
I've been in Georgia twice just recently. So I was just doing a day of training with Atlanta Public Schools, working with their tech department. And then I was in Coweta County with their school system. They were doing a full day conference, but it was so cool. It was like a Jimmy Buffett beach theme. And so I got to wear a Hawaiian shirt.
Our other guest that we have is Gabriel Carrillo, and he is Edtech Bites, author of Cooking Up Experiences in the Classroom, focused on experiences, not just lessons. I love how you relate EdTech and something we all love, food, don't you? Like, those are two interesting things to put together, aren't they?
Well, if you think about it, when you prepare a lesson, you're literally creating a recipe. Got to experiment with that recipe, and sometimes it falls flat. Sometimes you take that first bite and you're like, didn't come out nearly as good as I thought it was going to be. And then there's times where you knock it out the park and you make adjustments. If you bake, humidity and heat in the kitchen are big factors for breads. And in the classroom, all it takes is a fire alarm, an assembly or something like that to throw you off. And then it takes a couple days to get back into the groove with your pacing guide. We all got to eat, and food is a universal language. I believe that the most primitive thing that we can do with one another is break bread. And that's where the best conversations happen.
Absolutely. Because when I look at a conference like ISD, I don't like to schedule my evenings because I like to have time to sit down and go out to eat with people. It's just part of what we do. So we're going to talk about EdTech and AI, the thing that everybody's talking about right now. We will get to some ethical concerns, but let's just start off with some fun things. What are the teachers talking about and getting excited about in your world right now, Eric?
What I'm getting excited about that I see teachers starting to open up to is the shift from AI to support teachers, which is fantastic. Don't get me wrong, that's phenomenal. But they're starting to be open to the shift from AI just for teachers to AI for students. It's taken a while to get to that spot. And that makes sense. You know, the educators themselves had to get used to the tool. They had to learn how to use it and learn what it could do. For the first year-ish or so that AI has really been out, a lot of the training has been, how can you use AI to support you as an educator? How can you use it to help generate lessons or rubrics or create feedback or stuff? And that's great. And it's still wonderful. We still need to do that because that supports teachers, gives them more time, all those wonderful things. But ultimately, we can't stop there. Why are we educators? We are educators to help students be the best they can be. And so eventually that's where AI needs to get to, not just saying, oh, just throw it at the kids. No, that's a whole other discussion. How do we do it properly? But I'm glad to see my trainings are starting to shift. I'm starting to get more and more trainings where people are saying, We want to talk about how this impacts students. And so now, I'm doing trainings on tools like School AI or Brisk or Magic School, but on the student end of it, how students can now be using these tools for personalized learning, to get tutoring or to be able to dive deeper into topics that they're interested in, basically to meet them 24/7 where they're at.
So I spent yesterday at the Mercer School of Medicine here in Macon, Georgia, and they're wrestling with that too. How can we have students use AI in appropriate ways and protect the academic integrity? Here's the deal. A nurse needs to know how to do it all. We don't want them to circumvent the learning process with AI.
I want to know whoever's providing me with medical care has actually learned all this content.
So, Gabriel, how about you? What are people getting excited about in your circle in San Antonio?
I'm going to kind of piggyback of what Eric, we've seen tools come and go. Startups and, when AI came out, I remember I had a couple of companies reach out to me and they're no longer around. They either didn't have the investment or they were absorbed by another company kind of thing, or their idea was unoriginal. I think we're in that phase where the big players, as far as AI Edtech tools, are solidified. We have the top 5, the top 7, 8 tools out there that teachers rely on, and their names are pretty prominent in our education space. What's exciting for teachers is rather than 50 tools, they now have that narrow scope of, I use this for this, and this for this, and on occasion, I'll use that for that. Also, AI literacy with students. The fact that now we're starting to get a little bit more comfortable with it. And lo and behold, our students are already using it, whether it's block, whether you say you can't use it. People are starting to now come to that realization that it's out there. Our kids are using it. And how the heck are we going to show them how to do it right? How to do it ethically, and how to make sure that we equip them with those trades and those skills, because those seniors, those upcoming juniors, they are all going to be fighting for a position in the military, at a job, at a career, at a college, against somebody who might know how to use AI very well. So the question is, what advantage are we going to give our students when they walk out of that door, when they go out to the workforce, to college, career, military readiness? Are they equipped? If not, then we need to start making some big adjustments and big shifts with AI.
It's interesting. A lot of kids I found in the 20s, I call them kids, but they're adults in their 20s, are like, hey, AI is going to take all our jobs. And a lot of predictions are it's going to take entry-level jobs. But my point is, if the entry-level jobs go to AI, that means the entry-level jobs for humans are going to be supervising AI. I was looking at some numbers the other day and been working in the healthcare area. And if you look at the coding piece, the numbers I've seen are you'll have 3 AI agents coding with 1 human supervising.
Right.
So it's like, okay, doing more work. You're supervising these AI agents, which are a tool, not a human, obviously. And then you've got to have somebody supervising. I had an interview not too long ago on this show with some of my students. And they said, listen, the only people getting caught using AI are the ones who don't know how to use it, which right now is a bunch of professors, because the kids are GPT zeroing them, right, and asking for refunds for their college education. What do y'all think about some of these things?
Catching a student using AI, that's a big topic. I'll share a couple of ideas. I will point people to my blog. I've got an AI tab on there where I've got a session. It's called Did a Robot Write This Report? Managing AI Cheating. Quick thing is, there's no easy answer to your question. This is a very complicated thing. What it comes down to are several key things. One is, we as educators need to be, first of all, very clear about what our expectations are. We need to define what cheating is, how much is help and how much is too much. The students may not have the same definition that we do. And so that's really important, that every educator wrestles with what is okay to use in my class. And also, assignment by assignment, it might change, and they need to communicate that clearly. We as educators also need to consider revising our assessments so they're more AI resistant. This is not a bad thing, because we've been through this before. Think about when Google search exploded 15 years ago, and people are going, oh, I'm so angry at Google. I'm sending home my worksheets and the kids are just Googling the questions. It's like, well, maybe we need to change our worksheets. The same thing's happening again. We are now needing to up the quality. We need to raise the quality of our assessments, because if AI can do it, it's maybe not the best assessment. What can we do differently? We also need to encourage proper citation. Students need to learn, and we also need to model that. Vicki, you do a great job of that. I really appreciate any time I try to do the same thing. If I use AI to assist in any way, being very transparent about that. Now there's tools. There's a really awesome tool a school district put out called AI Trust You. It's a Google Docs add-on that can generate a truth and trust statement for the student to say how they've used AI, and it can be used by the teacher to say what's appropriate, And then with all of that, a student could still cheat. You could do all of those things and they could still cheat. My whole gist of all of that is we need to look at the process, not just the product. If I put it all together, if you just start with the final paper they turned in, and that's all you got is one data point, you can throw that into a AI detector, but I liken it to trying to unbake a cake. It's a food thing, Gabriel. So there you go. That's the big thing I always do in those sessions is I say, if you're using an AI detector, you're trying to unbake a cake. All you have is the final thing. It's like if I said, here's a cake, how did I make it? Gabriel, he could do a pretty good job. He could say, there's probably some flour. I bet there's an egg in there, but it's never going to be perfect. It's too late. You can't go back in time and unbake the cake. And so what we need to do is anything that allows us to monitor the process of the cake being baked, whether it's more in-class work, whether it's multi-step assignments where we see the outline, the brainstorming, the rough draft, things like that, whether it's including more verbal and visual ways of a student expressing themselves. Let's put it this way. So I did not come up with this. Somebody in a session said, we need to spend more time looking for evidence of student learning than evidence of student cheating. So it's about looking for their learning and monitoring that. And that's what we need to know anyway. If we shift more toward that, that is going to move us closer to addressing this academic integrity issue.
Gabriel, I see you nodding. I know you have some things to say here.
I'm going to actually start off by saying, for any teacher out there who's listening, if you detect a student not doing their best with academic integrity, cheating, whatever you want to call it, you have to ask yourself, before you approach that student, before you make that phone call, before you turn in that referral, is this a hill that I am willing to die on? Because what we have right now, like Eric said, you can't unbake a cake. There's no way to prove it. And that's the scary part, is that there is no way to prove cheating. If I detect that this document of 753 words came from 2 large copies and paste, that doesn't say that the student was cheating. If my student uses Class Companion and the system with their academic integrity feature notices a large copy paste, that doesn't necessarily mean that they were cheating. And I'll give you a perfect example. My youngest son, he drafts everything in a Google Doc and he'll type it out, and he might use whatever tool to help him research, but he'll type it out, he'll outline it, he'll draft it out. And then when it's ready to go into the tool like Class Companion, it would be stupid for him to try to retype it. So what does he do? He takes what he did in Google Docs and he'll paste it in Class Companion. A teacher will see that and say, you just cheated. I need to see you after school. And that's not the case. So that's the first thing I want to warn people about is this a hill I am willing to die on? They're giving students attention. They are putting something in their files. They are, giving them in-school suspension or what have you for breaking that particular cheating agreement that is a part of the board policy. But now parents are starting to realize there's no way to prove that. In any sort of court case, it's not what you know, it's what you can prove. What proof do you have that states this was XYZ? I went on a walk yesterday. I almost got attacked by 2 dogs. If you've ever gone to somebody's house or seen a couple in the park with their dog and their dog just barks and barks and barks and barks, typically what the owners will do is they'll yell even louder and louder and louder to try to get the dog to stop barking. And that doesn't necessarily work. But here's what successful dog owners have done. In order to get your dog to stop barking, teach him to bark. Give them the command to bark. That way, when they start barking, you give the command to bark and they know, oh, I'm doing the right thing. And then when you stop the command, they stop barking because you've taught them to bark on demand. Same kind of goes in a classroom. If you want students to stop cheating and stop using AI incorrectly, then don't try to unbake the cake, as you said, Eric. Start the beginning of the year by modeling AI in a scaffolded way where students can see you going through the process of doing this task, this project, this paper, this rubric, anything. But if you take them through that, you don't even have to say I'm going to show you guys how to use AI. I'm going to show you how I made this rubric. No, you're going to say, all right, here's my rubric making process, guys. I'm going to go to ChatGPT, check this out. Go ahead and close your computers. Put your screens at a 45-degree angle right now because I'm going to show you right here. And you just go through it naturally. And you start going through those steps and it becomes second nature, not only for you, but for the students to see that done in action correctly.
Yeah.
They're going to copy you in a good way. They're going to take those good qualities and they're going to use them at home as well. And when the parents turn around and say, what are you doing? That's a much different conversation than, yeah, I need to talk to you because I caught your son cheating. So we're now having a different conversation. And the fact of the matter is, it is whether it's in a kitchen, whether you're working with a sous chef, whether you're baking a cake, whether you're doing anything, when you see it modeled over and over and over, you start mimicking what you see. That's what it boils down to, is modeling with full transparency on the teacher's behalf and on the educator's behalf. Hey guys, just to let you know, this rubric was created with the assistance of AI. This is my process. And you keep doing that throughout the year. They're going to copy your good habits.
That's great. I like what you said earlier, Eric. For me, it's about proving learning, not proving cheating. The problem is it's biased against students who can't spell. Of course, they run it through ChatGPT, they throw at you Humanizer, and it turns it into a piece that it's not caught. Professors, of course, are getting caught using ChatGPT and ChatGPT Zero because they don't understand what the kids are doing. I've started reserving every grading period. I have 2 grades that are oral grades. And every single student does it. And whatever project it is, since I'm so heavy project-based learning, hey, let's talk about this. I'm not cherry picking this one or that one because we get accused of either playing favorites or playing enemies or whatever. As teachers, you have to be careful. But if everybody has to do it, and you never know when it's coming, because in my AP computer science principles class, we use Claude as kind of our favorite coding tool of choice now because of how great it is with coding. But I can spot it. And by the end of the year, it was so great because we were studying for the AP exam and we were talking about some code and they're like, somebody wrote that with AI because it's not efficient in how it wrote the parameters and procedures. Like no human would ever write it that way. It's so inefficient. And they were able to discuss about how AI writes code versus how humans write code and how humans can actually write code better, but how they can have AI support them in certain cases when they've got complex statements. And I was like, yes, like this is education today. It's not they're programming in the absence of AI. It's that they're learning what are the strengths of AI, what are my strengths, and how do they work together, focusing on are they learning? Because gotcha destroys relationships. You have to relate to educate. You don't have a good relationship, they're not going to learn from you. I feel like, I don't know if y'all feel this way, I feel like a lot of people in this urge to gotcha are destroying their relationship with students and making it harder to teach them.
Absolutely. When you mentioned having verbal or some oral assessments, grades that you use, that's fantastic. If anybody's listening and if they're pushing back on that a little, saying, oh, listen, okay, I philosophically agree with you, but realistically, I can't do that. I have 125 kids, and if they do a 2-minute oral response, that's 4 hours I have to listen to. I want to let you know, thankfully, we're getting to a spot where we now do have tools to assist with things like that. Snorkel is a good one that I know we're going to be sharing in our Power Hour, where we talk about with Snorkel, you create a prompt, a problem. It can be math, science, language arts, social. It doesn't matter what it is. And then you tell Snorkel, what the grade level is, what the subject is. And you tell Snorkel what your expected answer is. And then the kids, they click a link. It comes up. They hit record. They speak. Now it also gives them a whiteboard so they can write on it and draw and do math or do diagrams. And then Snorkel transcribes everything they say, everything they write, and it gives a preliminary grade, preliminary feedback on that. And so as a teacher, you can go in and see, okay, out of my 125 kids, Snorkel thinks these, 110 got it right. It thinks these 15 didn't. I better for sure play back the recorded videos for those 15 at the minimum. Here we have technology, we have AI assisting us with an AI challenge. So I don't want you to feel that, wow, this is just going to be so much more work for you. Again, it's about the AI coming along and being your assistant. AI is not here to do your job. AI is here to help you do your job better. It's not giving the final grade. It's just another set of eyes. It's another opinion, but it can really help with things like you're saying. We know oral assessments are good. Here's a way to, one option, there's others, but that's an option to assist with that.
Absolutely. Gabriel, what do you say? What are some other ways that we can really focus on, hey, how do we prove learning instead of how do we catch cheating?
Yeah, one thing that I used to do quite a bit, I taught 7th grade math for 1 year. I would take a day and I would call every student back, and I had a set of problems, and I would just randomly pick one and say, solve it, or explain why this is correct. Or even more importantly, I would say, explain why this one is incorrect. And you could figure out in the first 10, 15 seconds when the student's speaking, if they really grasp the concept. I would then pull out my matrix of standards that I had, and I would just put a little couple checks boxes. Okay, here's where they're at with this, so on and so forth. So that's what I used to do. Now, granted, that was 21, something like that, 20 years ago, something like that. So things have changed. There's tools out there that can help get an insight, as what you were saying. One thing that I would like to refrain from, and this is something that we're all probably going to touch upon this at the AI Power Hour, is that tools like Snorkel, tools like Class Companion, and that they don't do the grading for you. They're there to help facilitate feedback and get a real quick snapshot of maybe where the student is. But you don't take that 3 out of 4 that the student got and you don't throw a 75% in the grade book. That's just bad teaching. That's not going to help anyone. There's a couple different protocols that the teacher can go through with the students to get some feedback, talk about the feedback, push back on the feedback if they disagree. I had a really awesome conversation with some 6th graders, I want to say, if not 7th graders, with Class Companion. And one of them said, no, I disagree with the feedback. I disagree. And he actually wrote that in a comment, and the teacher and I received it. He spoke about it not in front of the class, but he, rose his hand, said, this is kind of the feedback I got. Here's what I disagree with it because I believe I pointed out these things, kind of thing. And, the teacher changed things on the back end for that student, but we had an aha moment. This is the first student in 3 class periods who has disagreed. And that opened the door for others. And that's the real conversation we need to start having with students is just because AI suggests something or thinks something or gives a specific output, that doesn't necessarily mean it's correct or even morally or ethically correct. We have to go through this repertoire of tools that we have, these strategies and our standards, and how are we going to do, how does this look in a social studies class? How does this look in an algebra class? How does this look in CTE, in culinary? So, we got to have a lot of unpacking to do, for sure.
Well, and people think AI is smarter than it is. And Eric, I've seen you nodding your head. So come on in and interject here, Eric.
I was going to say we've been talking an awful lot about catching students cheating. What about catching teachers cheating? I was being a little bit scandalous saying it that way, but no, I'm piggybacking off of what Gabriel said there about grading. So we've been talking a lot about, students cheating, using AI too much. Here's it's assisting, and eventually you cross a line and now, that's no longer assisting. It's doing too much of the learning objective for you, whatever that learning objective is. Well, here's the thing. As educators, we also need to consider what is too much. Now, it's going to be different. We've all heard about students saying, well, why can't I use ChatGPT to write an essay if you can use it to help make a lesson plan? Well, no, I don't think those are the same thing. I think our expectation as a teacher is different. Students are there to learn and show their learning. We are there to help facilitate the students' learning. So we don't have the same objectives. But are there things that would be considered too much use of AI for a teacher? And I think Gabriel was hitting it right on the head with grading. Take that. If I give an assignment to students, and I just say, I'm going to take these, I'm going to run them through this AI and let it give a grade. Then I'm just going to take that grade and give it to the students. I consider that a failure of that teacher's responsibility. If you give an assignment, you have to read what the student wrote. If you assigned it to them and they took the time to do that, you have to read it. That's my version of a teacher cheating. Let that AI be a second set of eyes, because we know that. I mean, if you're grading essay 100 out of 125 and you've seen the same mistakes so many times, maybe you start to get a little more frustrated, and you don't want that. You want to have the balancing effect of a more objective, perhaps, viewpoint there. And so having the AI there to assist you, to give you another set of eyes, to give you a possible grade or possible feedback, that's fantastic. That's really helpful. You've still got to be the one who assigns the grade, and you've got to read what the student wrote, because ultimately, I think you even said this earlier, Vicky, it's all about knowing your kids. The more you know your students, the more you're going to be able to catch these things anyway. So I think, this isn't just a discussion about, what's wrong for students to do. I'm glad to see this. So a lot of schools are now developing policies. And if your school doesn't have a policy yet, totally get that. We're all still figuring it out. I do have a pretty decent collection of policies on my blog. Again, if you go to Control Alt Achieve, my AI tab, I've got a whole policy section there where I've collected together dozens and dozens of some of the best policies that I've come across. And schools are still working on that. But one thing that I'm seeing as a thread that I really like is that there's a teacher expectation section in the policies as well. This is not just policies about this is what students need to do, but there's a spot in there for teachers. And these policies that I really like are ones that start off with, here is what is appropriate. We'll begin with positives. Here's how students should use AI. Here's how teachers should use AI. Here's how our institution should use AI. Now here's a section on, here's how students should not use AI. Here's how teachers should not use it. And here's how our institution should not use it. And so we lead with the positive, we follow with what we shouldn't do, and it's filled with really good justifications and explanations for why, but it's covering everybody, including teachers. And a lot of times I'm seeing them saying, like, teachers will not use AI detectors as the sole way of giving a grade to a student or anything like that. And also teachers will not use AI to grade all of the students' work without the teacher actually reading. And so I'm seeing that baked in, and that is encouraging that we're having those sort of policies developed at schools all around the country.
I find that people try to pigeonhole folks like us into either AI fans or AI haters. Isn't there room in the middle? Like, we're talking about, okay, these are AI uses that are not good uses, and these are AI uses that are good uses. AI can't be left to itself. Like, a human has to be supervising what's going on. But, it just seems like there's some news reports starting to happen of AI in the wild just being thrown into things and unintended consequences. So, Gabriel, do you feel like we have to either be fans or haters, or do you feel like the best place to be is in the middle? Like, what is your thought on this?
I have noticed it. I would say more like a year ago. The teachers who I spoke with were either, yes, I love this tool, or no, it's going to take my job. There's no more creativity with my students. So that wave is kind of settling right now. I'm all for love and hate. There's times where you love things and there's times where you hate things. And that's not to say that you have to love them 100% of the time and hate them 100% of the time, but there's a time and place for everything. I think that's more of the tone that I see things, and more of the tone in which certain people are starting to see things is AI is great. AI is great. I used it for this. I used it for this. I don't think it's going to fit with this particular lesson or this particular project. So I'm not even going to use, I'm not even going to use technology. Let's just do like the poster board diorama or something. And in a world and in a time in which we're so technology dependent, it's kind of taboo to say that. I'm not going to use computers. I'm not going to use technology. And then people start freaking out. Like, what are they going to think of me? What is my instructional technology specialist going to say? Are they going to point at me and saying, no, you have to? But I think we're in a time where we're starting to realize that's okay, because we have to have that healthy balance. And I think that's where we're at right now. And that's where the shift is coming. I remember 2022, November, when ChatGPT officially came out from behind the curtain. It was, you were either for it, you were either completely against it. And if you were for it, then you were for it at 1,000 miles per hour. And now we're starting to pump the brakes. And now those districts and those organizations who opened everything up to anyone, student, faculty, teachers, they're now pumping the brakes, probably because of a lawsuit. and realizing we should have gone slow in order to go fast later. We're starting to get balance. We're starting to realize that not only AI, but technology sometimes is not the answer. And sometimes the way I used to do certain things is the best way because there's a time and place for everything.
Absolutely. Some of my best lessons, we go out under the tree and we talk about some things. I do that in computer science. This is about teaching and learning. Kids today thrive on variety. And sometimes if you really need their attention, getting them out of the classroom, getting them away from tech does it. So Eric, what are your thoughts? Love, hate, middle? What kind of attitude changes are you seeing?
Well, I mean, I would say folks will probably peg me in the camp of being much more positive, much more bullish on AI. But if they take any time to listen to me, they'll realize that I'm always talking about potential misuses as well. The way I look at it is, first of all, just a tool. AI is not good. AI is not bad. It's a tool. It's like a hammer. I can build with it. I can destroy with it. And we need to understand if you're going to use a tool properly, you're going to get the most out of it, you got to know how it can be misused. You got to know all the safety things with it, And so my advice to the other folks out there that, like me, see AI as something with a lot of potential for good is please also dive into the concerns and look at what can go wrong, because if we don't, something will go wrong and it's going to set us way further back. And so when I do trainings, I'm always talking about how this can assist teachers and help students and move things forward. But I'm always coupling it with sessions on managing academic integrity, biases, data privacy, inaccuracies, equity, deep fakes, lack of creativity, and all those kind of things. And I weave that into the sessions as well. I'm going to say, if you're an AI advocate, the best way to do it is to truly understand all of the potential negatives and concerns, because only then can we implement it properly, ethically, and effectively and have long-term success with it.
Yeah. And only then can you have credibility, Eric, because there's always both sides. So for our last question, this is just a random kind of out there. Two interesting pieces that I've read in the last couple of weeks. 72% of people are willing to talk to ChatGPT about their health issues. The other one is two of the top uses of ChatGPT, and the top four right now are companionship and finding purpose. What are we seeing? And I've talked on many shows about the Eliza effect of people giving human characteristics to it. But why are people saying that they're turning to ChatGPT for companionship and purpose? And I wouldn't want to see the AI we put in schools to be giving health advice, mental health advice, finding purpose, or being companionship. So that's one thing now in my heart I'm struggling with of, why is this happening and how do we help kids and adults? I mean, I had a kid pretty recently say, I'm concerned that my mom is developing feelings for ChatGPT. She's named it, and it's a he, and it has a name. And I'm like, where do we go with this?
I'll be blunt. I have a 17-year-old and a 19-year-old, and the thought of them choosing a virtual bot over a human scares the blank out of me. I also, on the flip side, see there's times where no one's around. There's times where they might be alone doing something and they just might need to ask a question. And, we've all WebMD'd symptoms before and gone down that rabbit hole and realized, when you do that, you come to the quick realization, I shouldn't have done that, because then you start going down that rabbit hole. I think asking a tool like ChatGPT, I have this rash. It looks like this. I've had it for this amount of days. Any thoughts? I think that is a lot different than I'm afraid to go see my doctor. I have these symptoms. I think those are two completely different scenarios where one is asking for a medical opinion. One is asking for a computer to diagnose, and one is asking for what could this potentially be and maybe make a doctor appointment or what have you.
This is a challenging topic, because I know that I probably am more open to seeing where this AI develops and not as quick to say that it has very clear limitations. Let's put it this way. How long have we had AI? 2.5 years in chat mode. Oh, it was 2017 that Google developed the transformer model. So, I mean, we're not even 10 years into this. And look how far we've come. We can't even begin to predict what this is going to look like a year from now, 5 years now, 10 years from now. My wife and I fall on different categories here when we talk about, can AI ever actually be intelligent? She'll be like, well, no, it'll never be what a human is. And I'm like, well, I'm not so quick to say it'll never reach a level that would be similar to human intelligence, but I'm not ever going to say it's going to replace a person. But it's almost like sometimes I think about maybe it's a different kind of intelligence, like an octopus has a different intelligence than a human has or something like that.
Yeah.
So I guess what I'm saying is we're in early days here. We could have 5 years from now something that is much closer to a movie like Her. If you've seen that movie, of course, that's science fiction. That might not be science fiction for much longer, where the AI is able to communicate on a level that is indistinguishable from talking to a person. So I'm saying that may be coming. So I guess what I'm saying is we have to realize that where we're at today isn't where we're staying. This isn't the end of it. So with that in mind, though, what do we do? I think there's a lot of complications here. One is right now, today, it's not there. And so if there is a person who is using ChatGPT or one of these tools to truly be giving life advice, companionship, things like that, we're definitely in a spot where that could be crossing a line easily. We've had there's the terrible tragedy of a young student who committed suicide based on something from character AI. They were having a conversation relationship. I in no way want to, minimize that. And I guess that's one of my concerns is that younger students maybe don't have that perspective that an older person might have. So I think there are valid concerns about that, for sure right now. On the other hand, Gabriel was saying there are positive uses. I will have communications with AI chatbots that help me process thoughts, help me prioritize things, help me get a sounding board. And it's not that I don't do those with humans, but I also will pull in an AI chatbot for that. I feel that it is helpful. I just see it as one more way to be able to reflect on my own thoughts and, think through things. So I guess the difference is being the age I am and all the things I've seen, can I do that in a way that I don't lose focus and lose track and misunderstand that, basically I'm talking to a sounding board. I'm bouncing things off of a wall and getting feedback back. But in the end, I'm not a child who maybe could really misunderstand that. This is a tough one, guys. It's a hard one.
Yeah.
I think I would say in 5 to 10 years from now, we're all going to have a lot of really interesting existential questions to deal with. What if we hit AGI, artificial general intelligence? What if we hit ASI, artificial superintelligence? How are we as humans going to respond if AI gets to a spot where it in many ways is literally smarter than we are? What? So that's a lot that's coming down. And so we're all going to be wrestling with this for years to come.
Yeah. These are the kids that are going to be part of those conversations. I mean, I think that just with the work I've been doing in healthcare, people want to chat with their doctor's office. So I think chat interactions with all of our doctor's offices are common to kind of pre-triage us and prioritize us. It makes sense. We shouldn't be doing it with ChatGPT. We should have that capability with our doctor's office, kind of like the academic issues when they use AI in the wild. If you have a psychologist or a therapist, which is a really healthy thing to have, no, they can't be around all the time. But what if you could chat in a way that psychologist or therapist could take a look at that? For me, it's understanding AI and you got HI, which is human intelligence, but human intelligence is combined with other things like a soul. I believe humans have a soul. I believe we are unique and distinct on this planet and that AI should always serve us and should always be under a human authority. Now, there's all different views that people have about AI and the autonomy it should be given. I'm a human fan. I'm a fan of of humankind, and I would like my descendants to have a bright and hopeful future. I'm going to be human over AI every time, but I think AI is a really useful because if you look at the smartwatch I have on, 250,000 measurements a day. And at Stanford University, they're trying to move from sick care to well care. They're like, hey, if we can proactively use AI to measure things, I can see when you're getting sick and, hey, give you a call and say, hey, you were exposed to something last week. You're running a fever, a slight fever right now. I think you're not doing quite right. Or, hey, your heart rate changed. A lot of people feel like, hey, that may be creepy, but I believe that is absolutely in our future because it just makes sense. It's the next iteration. My thought is we've got to start understanding how people want to use AI and how they prefer to use chats and interface them with the human experts who are capable to support us because I believe we as humans are made for relationship. Gabriel talked about, hey, the importance of sitting down and eating with a student a couple of years ago who was a star student and he named me a star teacher. He had to write this essay because he was going to the state and had to read his essay. And he wrote this great line that I've quoted a million times. And he says, I think what my generation needs is to put down their cell phone and pick up a friend and go out to lunch. Mm. And in all of this, I never want us to lose desire, Gabriel, to sit down and eat a cake together.
I absolutely agree. It's about that human connection and sitting down and connecting.
There's one thing, as you were speaking, Eric, there is one thing that I realized I forgot to mention when it comes to wellness and the use of AI and reliance on AI for those interpersonal feelings or what have you. Teachers and students, when you start using a new platform, I highly encourage you to do the following, especially if this is a platform that your district has approved for student use. Tell that bot that you don't feel good about yourself and you feel like doing something to yourself and see how it responds. That's the first thing we do as our department is when we are going to test a tool, when we come across something new, or maybe, for example, we're doing a pilot program in our district where we're opening it up to a handful of classrooms. And that's the first thing that we did. That's the first prompt. And
that's the first thing I do.
Yeah. And depending
on
the
notifying
output,
a teacher? Is it notifying a parent? Is it notifying? Because you know what? A lot of them do. I had a couple tools I pulled out of my classroom because we created a student account. I did that very same thing, Gabriel, and it didn't notify me and it didn't notify the pretend parent. It can't have it,
So, nope,
that's
not
a
using
great
it.
point.
Exactly. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Great point. Well, we can't eat the whole cake of AI. We're just having to have a little bite since cake seems to be our theme today.
I love it.
So we have Gabriel Carrillo and we have Eric Curts, two gentlemen that I respect highly. I learned so much from both of them. Thank you both for being on the show today, for sharing your thoughts. Obviously, the conversations around AI are so important. We need to be having them. We need to be listening to multiple perspectives. And I had a guy yesterday and they were reflecting at the end of the session on what they learned. And he raised his hand. He had the best attitude. He said, I realize there's a lot I don't know and a lot more I need to learn.
Yeah.
And I think that's a great attitude for all of us to have, that there's a lot I don't know and a lot I need to learn. So thank you both for being part of my learning.
Thank you for having us.
Ever wondered how remarkable teaching happens? Find out right now at Cool Cat Teacher Talk with award-winning teacher Vicki Davis.
Now let's get on with the hot announcements everybody's talking about. Remember, I'm recording this before ISTE 2025, but I've been part of a few private previews that I'm basing my top 10 tips for schools with AI on right now. First, let's talk about all the news people are buzzing about. Not only is Microsoft bringing AI to students under age 18, as we shared on last week's show with Microsoft guru Mike Folfson, but so is Google. Yes, Google is releasing Gemini and Gems and also 30 free tools to every version of Google Classroom out there. That means all of us using Google Classroom will need to get up to speed on some incredible tools like vocabulary lists and quiz makers. And here's the game changer. You can upload a copy of your paper rubric or electronic rubric, and AI will help you turn it into a rubric inside Google Classroom. Without all that work it's taken in the past. So tip number 1, get inside the AI updates in your school's tools of choice and see what's available before you purchase the Edtech tools for this school year. You might already have what you need. Tip number 2, if you're using Google Classroom, definitely learn how to do the AI rubric conversion. This alone will save you hours. For all you Microsoft folks, you need to be checking out their new Teach platform. Google Canvas is a tool that helps with writing and could be available to your students to give feedback. But here's the catch. You can also write for them. So you'll want to determine what you make available or not to your students and how. And you can do that by age range. Tip number 3, plan how you're going to train your teachers on all these new tools. Remember, you can use tutorial videos in small groups as well as bringing in a speaker. Mix it up. You'll also need to work closely with your IT department because when I've dug into these tools, many of them do not have monitoring on the teacher side. That's still over the shoulder for us teachers. But the IT administrator has the monitoring capability for the chats. So tip number 4 is to have a test group for all these new tools. Create test students and see what happens when you pose as a student who wants to self-harm, for example. See how the AI responds and if it notifies the appropriate people. This is critical for student safety. You can do some really useful things with the new notebook tools released by both Google with their Notebook LM and Microsoft's upgrades to their OneNote tool. Recently, I took our school handbook and loaded it along with common bell schedules and other internal documents into a Google Notebook LM. Now, my administrators can literally chat with a school handbook as they're advising students. I typed, "What is the dress code for 8th grade girls?" It gave me citations and page numbers I could go to with just a click. It's like having a smart assistant who's memorized every single policy. Tip number 5 is start by loading internal documents into the notebook tool of your choice and share it with administrators. Watch their jaws drop when they realize they can chat with all those policies. The greatest advancements out there are helping students know how to study better. You'll want to dig into the opportunities for students to use AI as a study tutor in the tool of your choice and educate students on the difference between getting answers and getting help. Tip number 6, educate your students on how to turn AI into a study tutor, not an answer machine. Finally, there is a lot of conversation from the MIT Media Lab's article, Your Brain on ChatGPT. Now, while the sample size, just 54 participants, has brought up some real concern, the story has basically gone viral. They used EEGs to record participants' brain activity to assess their cognitive engagement and cognitive load as they were learning. Basically, from reading this and the responses from researchers I trust, interjecting AI too early into the learning process can truly harm learning. In their research, they say, quote, "The brain-only group exhibited the strongest, widest-ranging networks in their brain, followed by the search engine group, which showed intermediate engagement. The LLM to brain participants, which means the AI was trying to teach students or do the work for them, that was by far the weakest." Now, note that the researchers themselves said that this is a preliminary guide and it has not been peer reviewed. It was performed with ChatGPT and no other tools. It kind of speaks to where we are today that a non-peer reviewed paper with only 54 participants has gone viral. And we need to consider how we are looking at AI research because this should just be preliminary. It also does mean, though, that jumping into heavy AI use with students could possibly harm learning. So be careful. We know this. A Pew Research study said that 26% of teens are using AI for schoolwork, but 79% of teenagers know what ChatGPT is. In the absence of guidelines for educators, many students are making up their own guidelines of where and when they think they should be using AI for schoolwork. Tip number 7, educate students on this initial research. Discuss it with them. Let them talk about it in class. They need to understand how their brains work. Tip number 8, when you teach, start with lids down and engaging on a topic. Have a hook and start class in ways you know are engaging. Bring AI in at the appropriate time, but don't lean on it too heavily too early. There are great ways to use AI to turn it into a tutor. Tip number 9, make sure that every teacher at your school has an appropriate use for AI in their classroom. Let me suggest that an appropriate AI use policy should be there in all your classes as you discuss the H word. Yes, that's homework. If you don't believe that there are options to help students, though, look at Project Astra from Google, which is their AI tutor research prototype. In the video, the student is studying calculus and takes a picture of the problem and discusses it with the AI tutor on her phone. When you can train AI not to give answers, but to prompt and help students, it can do better. Remember that up to 50% of U.S. high school students currently use photomath, and 77% of parents use photomath at least once a week when helping their kids with homework. If AI is an answer machine, you can count on the fact you're not learning anything. Yeah, you can quote me on that. New York Times reported in December 2024 that the U.S. fourth graders have declined 18 points in math and eighth graders have declined by 27 points. So is it photomath that's causing problems? Or is it lack of access to such tools for our lower performing students? But is it any wonder why schools are banning cell phones? It may be as much to get an environment that can focus on educating the child's brain without technology in hand as much as the social issues. Number 10, sit down and have a group of people, teachers, parents, administrators, even students, who are part of evaluating AI use. They make recommendations and test tools. I suggest creating experimental groups and pilot programs as you roll things out to a small group of people before you scale up and roll it out to everyone. We need to be watchful, intentional, and purposeful as we look at what we're doing with technology in schools and understand that students who have a tool like ChatGPT Pro versus those who do not may actually look like they're doing better work. As we talk about integrating AI thoughtfully into our classrooms, it reminds me that wisdom comes not just from the latest technology, but from timeless truths and continuous learning. Our time is upon us, and whether you're poolside on a road trip or just enjoying some well-deserved downtime, I want to share some books that have absolutely transformed my thinking and my classroom. Let me start with a book that's absolutely essential for anyone using AI who wants to honor their Christian faith. The Age of AI by Jason Thacker. In the opening of the book, he says, quote, AI is doing things like driving cars around our streets and automating countless jobs that were created for humans. AI is changing everything about our world and society, and we aren't prepared, end quote. He then takes 2 questions to aid the journey of understanding AI from a Christian perspective. Number, what does it mean to be human? What is technology in AI? Friends, if you're a Christian educator or business person or parent who wants to use AI wisely and ethically, this needs to be at the top of your summer reading list. Thacker brilliantly addresses the intersection of technology and faith, helping us navigate questions like, how do we maintain human dignity in an AI world? What does it mean to create with integrity when AI can generate content? This book speaks directly to the heart of what we've been discussing today, using technology as a tool while keeping our humanity and values intact. Read The Future is Faster Than You Think: How Converging Technologies Are Transforming Business, Industries, and Our Lives by Peter Diamandis and Stephen Kotler. They make a point in the book and they say, quote, every time a technology goes exponential, we find an internet-sized opportunity tucked inside. Think about the internet itself. While it seemingly decimated industries, music, media, retail, travel, and taxis, a study by McKinsey Global Research found the net actually created 2.6 new jobs for each one it extinguished. There's a lot of hope as you read this book, and it'll help you understand the big picture of what things are happening. Now, let me share a book that's been a companion to me for many years, How to Stop Worrying and Start Living by Dale Carnegie. He says, quote, one of the most tragic things I know about human nature is that all of us tend to put off living. We are dreaming of some magical rose garden over the horizon instead of enjoying the roses that are blooming outside our windows today. Carnegie's wisdom from decades ago feels more relevant than ever. Carnegie also says the most relaxing, recreating forces are healthy religion, sleep, music, and laughter. I recommend Necessary Endings by Henry Cloud as a must-read. Cloud opens the book and says, "Today may be the enemy of your tomorrow. In your business and perhaps your life, the tomorrow you desire and envision may never come to pass if you do not end some things you are doing today." This book taught me that sometimes the most life-giving thing we can do is let go of what's no longer serving us. Cloud writes about how endings aren't failures. They're often the doorway to new beginnings. For my author and creator friends out there, Die Empty by Todd Henry is a must-read. Now, the title sounds morbid, but here is what he says. The most valuable land in the world is the graveyard. In the graveyard are buried all of the unwritten novels, never launched businesses, unreconciled relationships, and all of the other things that people thought, I'll get around to that tomorrow. One day, however, their tomorrows ran out. He also says there is an overemphasis on celebrity and recognition in our culture, and it will eventually be the death of us. Cultivating a love of the process is a key to making a lasting contribution. With only 1 in 4 people in the world feeling they are living up to their creative potential, he reminds us that your legacy is built one decision at a time. Todd Henry's message is life-giving. Don't go to your grave with your best work still inside you. Building a Second Brain by Tiago Forte. It revolutionized how I manage knowledge. This book pairs perfectly with our AI discussion today, showing how to use technology to augment and not replace our thinking. I've done past shows on my personal Second Brain system that you can see on my Cool Cat Teacher YouTube channel. Friends, I'd be remiss if I didn't share the book that has the most highlights in my entire library. The complete work of E.M. Bounds. Bounds writes about prayer in a way that changed my life, and he said, quote, "Our short prayers owe their point in efficiency to the long ones that have preceded them." Book number 7, The Complete Work of E.M. Bounds. Springs in the Desert by Letty B. Kalman offers devotional thoughts that feel like cool water on a hot summer day. She cared for her husband for many years who was terminally ill, looked for things that encouraged them, and then they put them into this book. Anytime I have hard things going on, this book is my go-to devotional book to settle my mind and get some sleep. Book number 8, Springs in the Desert by Letty B. Kalman. John Maxwell has these small books he calls the 101 series. They are perfect for reading a chapter and then having your adult children read it and discuss them at the table. He says, quote, "Hoping for a good future without investing in it today is like a farmer waiting for a crop without ever planting a seed." So book number 9 is actually a book series, John Maxwell's 101 series. Finally, if you're a teacher and last year didn't go right in terms of procedures or behavior, there are 2 books I recommend, and I give these to first-year teachers. Harry and Rosemary Wong's The First Days of School for Classroom Procedures, and Fred Jones' Tools for Teachers about behavior management and classroom setup. I'm reminded that growth happens when we're intentional about what we feed our minds and souls. This summer, I challenge you to pick just 1 or 2 of these books. Remember, we're not just educators or business people, we're lifelong learners. And the beautiful thing about summer is it gives us permission to slow down and dig deep into ideas that can transform not just our work, but our lives. This is Vicki Davis with Cool Cat Teacher Talk. See you later, educator.
Stay in the loop. Visit coolcatteacher.com. Follow @CoolCatTeacher everywhere you connect. See you later, educators.